Hello everyone. Today we'll be solving the competency focused multiple choice questions that was released officially by the ICSE board. So today we'll be solving the multiple choice questions of prose, poetry and Julius Caesar. And in the next video we'll be doing the short question and the long question types. So are you ready? Let's begin. So I'll be reading out the question, the options. I'll give you some time to choose your answer and then we will discuss the answers. So the first one, what does the phrase dark abyss in the poem Haunted House symbolize? A. Life experiences. B. Challenges in life. C. A deep pit. Or D. Despair and depression. I hope you marked your answer. So the question here is, what does it symbolize? So the literal meaning of the word abyss is something deep, isn't it? But we have to see, what does dark abyss symbolize? Okay. So if you remember in the poem, over whose unsteady flows that sways and bends, wander our thoughts above the dark abyss. Okay, so here dark abyss means it's an endless deep pit which portrays despair. So here the answer is, it portrays despair and depression. So don't be in a haste while choosing the answer. First read the question properly and see what does it symbolize. Okay, because each question is 1 mark and you can't lose even a single mark because of silly errors. Let's go to the next question. The atmosphere created in the poem Haunted Houses is A. Melancholic, B. Eerie, C. Peaceful, or D. Unsettling. Okay, so if you remember, the poem Haunted Houses is a comforting and sentimental poem which shows us the transient nature of material items and permanence of spiritual. It tells us that our loved ones remain with us through thoughts and memories, and even if they are gone from the physical plane, their presence does not diminish. So it is definitely not unsettling. It is a peaceful poem. The next. The ghosts and phantoms in H.W. Longfellow's Haunted Houses are described as A. Harmless, B. Mischievous, C. Malevolent, or D. Vengeful. I think you're going to get this answer right. Yes. The answer is harmless. If you remember, in the first stanza itself, it is written, the harmless phantoms on their errands glide. All the other options are negative terms. So the answer is option A. The next one. Which of the following options contain the same literary device as the given verse from the poem? As silent as the pictures on the wall. So first you have to recognize what is the literary device here. So as silent as the. So you will get to know this is a simile, isn't it? Okay, let's read the options. Option A, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. B, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. C, soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. Or D, some are like fields of sunlit corn. Yes, it is pretty apparent, isn't it? Here the word like is used. So when like or as word is used to compare something, it is simile. So the answer is option D. If I'm going too fast, you can pause the video Write the answers and then listen to this video. The next one. Which of the following lines reflects Count de Lorge's valor? Valor is bravery. A. Then threw the glove but not with love. B. And amongst them sat Count de Lorge with one for whom he sighed. C. He bowed and in a moment leapt among the lions wild. D. I dropped my glove to prove his love. The answer is pretty apparent. It is option C, because if he is jumping among the lions, that is showing valor or bravery. The next question. The lions roared with horrid laughing jaws. Which of the following uses the same literary device as given in the above line from the poem The Glove and the Lions? Is it A. The snowflakes glittered like diamonds? The caged bird sings with a fearful trill. C. My hands were icicles because of the cold weather. Or D. The smell of freshly brewed coffee woke me up. So first we'll try to recognize what literary device is used in the question. So here it is auditory imagery. So in imagery itself, it is auditory imagery. So here, which one is auditory imagery? It is option B. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill. Okay, moving to the seventh one. Which of the following is not the theme of the poem The Glove and the Lions? A. Vanity. B. Chivalry. C. Pride. Or D. Cruelty. Okay, so the answer is option D. There is no cruelty here. Definitely there is vanity, which is one of the most important theme. There is chivalry also. The Count de Lorge, he is chivalrous. And obviously there is pride, which is portrayed by the lady. Coming to question number 8. Choose the options that list the sequence of events in the correct order. First one, retrieving the glove, the angry count flung it in her face. Second, while the lions were engaged in a vicious battle, the count's beloved threw her glove into the arena. Third, the count realized that it was her vanity which prompted her to do this. Fourth, the king was enjoying the fight of the royal beast. Okay, so I'll give you some time to solve it and then we will discuss. Okay, so the first option is option number 4. So if you remember the first lines, King Francis was a hearty king and loved a royal sport. And one day as his lions fought, he sat looking on the court. So that is option 4 is done. After that, it is option number 2. While the lions were engaged in the vicious battle, the count's beloved threw her glove. After she threw the glove, it is option 3. He realized that it was her vanity that prompted her to do this. Do what? Throw her glove. And finally, what did he do? He retrieved it. And retrieving the glove, the angry count flung it in her face. So it is 4-2-3-1. Option number B. The ninth one. Which of the following is not a characteristic of a great soul? A. Nurtures. B. Shrinks. C. Radiant. Or D. Informs. So the one that is not the characteristics of the great soul is option B, shrinks. Because if you remember, when great souls die, our reality that is bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls dependent upon their nurture now shrinks. So it is our souls that does not get their spiritual nourishment, it shrinks. So that is not the characteristics of the great soul. That is what happens to us. That is why shrinks is not the answer. The 10th one, select the option that shows the correct relationship between the two given statements. Statement 1, the falling of great tree shocks both big and small creatures. Statement 2, the death of a great person maddens their loved ones. A, statement 1 is true, statement 2 is false. B, statement 1 is false, statement 2 is true. C, statement 1 is an analogy for statement 2. Or D, statement 1 is the reason for statement 2. So what is the meaning of the word analogy? Analogy means it is usually a comparison between two different things to explain the concept by highlighting their similarities. So let's see statement 1. The falling of great trees shocks both big and small creatures. That is absolutely true. Because not only lions and elephants lumber after safety, but even the small things recoil into silence. So statement 1 is definitely true. The death of a great person maddens their loved ones. It doesn't make them angry. It doesn't madden them. So statement 2 is wrong. So the answer is statement 1 is true, statement 2 is false. The 11th one. The 5 stages of grief are described as shock, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Which of these stages is expressed in the following lines? And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms. Is it A, shock, B, anger, C, depression, or D, acceptance? So, after a period, peace bloom means after the initial anguish and pain, gradually the person feels better or accepts it. So, the answer is acceptance. Option D. 12th one. The central idea of Angelo's poem, When Great Trees Fall, is that. So, what is the central idea? So, maybe there could be options which also expresses the option as true, but we have to say what the central idea is, the main point. A, when a gigantic tree falls, it affects all the trees in the jungle. B, the death of an ancient tree disturbs all the animals in the jungle. C, the impact of the death of a loved one on those struggling to cope with the loss. Or D, life will never be the same after the loss of a loved one. Have you marked your answer? Okay. So, see, option D is also correct. Life will never be the same after the loss of a loved one. So, our senses are restored, but never to be the same. But that is not the central idea of the poem. What is the central idea? It is the impact of a death of a loved one to those struggling to cope with the loss. The entire poem is about that. That is why 12th answer is C. Moving to the 13th one. Which of the following options contain the same literary device that appears in the following line? On any but a paper sheet so white. So they are explaining the paper sheet to be white. So we are imagining the paper, the white paper, isn't it? So it is imagery, but what kind of imagery is it? It is visual imagery. Now let's see among these options, which of it is visual imagery? A, silver and blue as the mountain mist. B, He names the sky his own. C. The fir trees dark and high. D. Song and mother croon of bird. So option A is a simile. So we have to find the visual imagery. And the answer is option C. The fir trees, that is dark and high. Question number 14. Choose the option that lists the sequence of events in the correct order. First, he changes his mind when he notices something unusual about it. Second, the poet realizes that the speck is a living mite with preferences of its own. Third, he intends to use the tip of his pen dipped in ink to erase the speck. Fourth one, the poet notices a speck on the white paper he is writing on. So I'll give you some time to choose your answers. So the first option in order is option number 4 is the first one. The poet notices a speck on the white paper he is writing on. After he notices, what happens? He first intends to use the tip of his pen dipped in ink to erase the speck. But then what happens? He changes his mind when he notices something unusual about it. And finally, the poet realizes that the speck is a living mite with preferences of its own. So option D. This is from the poem The Considerable Speck. Okay, 15th one. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statements 1 and 2. So what is statement 1? The poet concludes that the mite proves to be an intelligent creature. Statement 2. The mite seems to dislike the ink as it quickly whirls around to fly away. So is it option A? Statement 2 is the cause for statement 1. Statement 2 is true and statement 1 is false. Statement 1 and statement 2 are independent of each other. Or D, statement 1 is true and statement 2 is false. Have you marked your answer? Okay. Now first, before we discuss this answer, I'm going to read out the lines from the poem. It paused as with suspicion of my pen, and then came racing wildly on again to where my manuscript was not yet dry. Then paused again and either drank or smelt. With loathing, for again it turned to fly. Plainly with an intelligence I dealt. So he's saying after he came to know that it felt loathing and it tried to fly away, he realized that he dealt with an intelligent creature. So which is the answer? It is statement 2 is the cause for statement 1. Because of this, he realized that it is an intelligent creature. That is why you should know the poem really well to get all the answers right. Moving to the 16th. What is the central idea in Frost's poem A Considerable Speck? So what is the central idea? A. The poet critiques societal disregard for smaller aspects of life. B. The idea is that every living being, no matter how small, has its own perspective and intelligence. C. The struggle between man-made creations and the natural world. D. The insignificance of individual thoughts in the grand scheme of universe. And the answer is option B, that every living being, no matter how small it is, even as small as a dust mite, has a mind of its own and intelligence. 17th one. The people dazed, retire amazed, although they know it's well meant. The lines tell us that Bisha Lochan Sharma's singing was dash. A. Melodious, B. Discordant, C. Soothing, or D. Unbelievable. So we know it was not melodious, it wasn't soothing at all. And the singing was not unbelievable, it was discordant. What is the meaning of discordant? Discordant means inharmonious, which was jarring to the ears. Next. And in the sky, the feathered fly turtle while they are winging. What does the phrase turn turtle mean? A. Act like a turtle. B. Jump like a turtle. C. Turn upside down. Or D. Become a turtle. I had definitely explained this in the explanation of the poem. I hope you remember it. Turn turtle means turn upside down. Option C. 19th. What does the phrase panic rout imply in the poem The Power of Music? A. Solemn parade. B. Celebration. C. Unhappy occasion. Or D. Chaotic situation. So in the poem, if you remember, the line is, they are trampled in the panic rout or languish pale and sickly. So they are trampled in the panic rout. So panic rout is disorder. So it is a chaotic situation. 20th one. Which are the geographical locations mentioned in the poem The Power of Music? First, is it Delhi? Second, Kolkata. Third, Burma. Or fourth, Bangalore. You can catch his train on hills and plains from dash to dash. That is from Delhi to Burma. So option 1 and 3. So that is option number B. Okay, so we have successfully completed all the poems. I hope you're thorough with all these. Now we'll move towards the prose. 21st. Choose the option that lists the sequence of events in the correct order from the story with the photographer. First, the photographer hurriedly backs away from the machine and with a serious expression comments that there is something wrong with the narrator's face. Second, he crawls under the cloth draped over the machine and waits for some time. Third, the narrator thinks that the photographer is praying. Fourth, the photographer calls the narrator into the inner room and rolls a machine into the middle of the room. I'll give you a few minutes to choose your options. Okay. So the first, the photographer calls the narrator into the inner room and rolls a machine into the middle of the room. Then what happens? Second option, he crawls under the cloth draped. So after that, what does the narrator think? He thinks that that the photographer is praying. Then the photographer comes back and comments that there's something wrong with the narrator's face. So it is 4, 2, 3, 1. That is option number B. Next. I don't care for it. I like to get the hair clear back to the superficies and make out a new brow line. These lines tell us that the photographer is A. Angry, B. Weak, C. Insensitive, or D. Anxious. So I don't care for it. I like this. So the photographer is definitely insensitive. 23rd. Which of the following options contain the same literary device that appears in the following lines? The machine still staggering from the shock. A. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. B. In the vestibule below was a letterbox. C. So heavy they were, tidal waves come over the islands. Or D. It became transparent like a thin veil. Okay, so first of all, the machine still staggered from the shock. So here, which literary device is used? It is personification. So we have to see which of these options has personification in it. That is giving life to a lifeless object. So the house roofs seem to heave and sway. So that is personified there. And hence the 23rd answer is A. 24th. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statements 1 and 2. Okay. Statement 1. The author feels that his eyes in the photograph don't look very much like his. Statement 2. The photographer has retouched the eyes. So, statement 1 is true and statement 2 is false. Statement 2 is true and statement 1 is false. Statement 1 is the cause for statement 2. Statement 1 and 2 are independent of each other. So, this is pretty easy. The photographer has retouched the eyes, and that is why the author feels that his eyes don't look very much like his. So, statement 2 is the cause for statement 1. So, there is a typing error here. Moving to the 25th one. Martin in the story, The Elevator, is afraid of being trapped in the elevator. What is the fear called? A. Hydrophobia. B. Arachnophobia. C. Claustrophobia. Or D. Aquaphobia. So, being trapped in an enclosed space is called claustrophobia. Yes. So, hydrophobia is fear of water, usually when people have that during rabies. Arachnophobia is a fear of spiders, and aquaphobia is fear of drowning in water. Which of the statements from the story, The Elevator, is not true? A. Martin was a thin 12-year-old boy. B. The lady was wearing an old green coat. C. Martin was skinny, weak, and bad at sports. D. The lady had large, fleshy cheeks, no chin, and brown eyes. Have you marked your answer? So the answer which is not true is option D. So the lady had large, fleshy cheeks and no chin, just a huge mass of neck. Her blue eyes were tiny but sharp. So it is not brown eyes, and she had a huge mass of neck. That is why option D is the answer. 27. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statement 1 and 2. Statement 1. Martin backs away from the elevator, ran down the stairs and broke his leg. In the morning, when the elevator door opened, the fat lady awaited him. A. Statement 1 is independent of statement 2. B. Statement 2 is the cause of statement 1. C. Statement 1 is an example of statement 2. Or D. Statement 1 is a contradiction of statement 2. Do you know which option it is? In the morning, when the elevator door opened, the fat lady awaited him. So what happened? Martin backed away from the elevator, ran down the stairs and broke his leg. So statement 2 is the cause of statement 1. Next. You are afraid, said the father, when are you going to grow up and act like a man? What does the statement tell us about Martin's father's character? He was A. Cowardly, B. Greedy, C. Insensitive, or D. Rude. So his father was definitely insensitive to his feelings. 29. Which of the following statements is not true of Adjoa in The Girl Who Can? A. She has thin and long legs. B. She is declared the best all-round junior athlete. C. She is 7 years old girl from Ghana. D. She is proud of her abilities. So we have to see which is not true. And which is the option that is not true? It is option D. She's proud of her abilities. Now, do you know why that is the wrong answer? Why it is not true? Is because if you remember in the story, it was written, running with our classmates on our small sports field and winning first place each time never seemed to me to be anything about which to tell anyone at home. So she didn't think it was a big deal. So she was definitely not proud of her abilities. So here proud is used in a negative term. 30th one. Assess the impact of education on Adjoa's life as depicted in the story The Girl Who Can. A. It has no significant influence. B. It is detrimental to her growth. C. It empowers her and provides her with a sense of identity. Or D. It creates a rift between her and her family. So, what is the impact of education in Adjoa's life? The answer is option C. Yes, it empowers her and provides her with a sense of identity. That is why her mother was adamant that Adjoa should go to school because her mother did not go to school. And what did the mother feel? She felt like she was locked in some kind of darkness because she didn't go to school. Next, what does Adjoa mean by the land of sweet, soft silence? A. Her girlish dreams. B. Her native village. C. Her mother's womb. Or D. Her entire world. It is her mother's womb. Next, Adjoa's grandmother is a representative of authority. Second, determination. Third, unconventional approach. Or fourth, patriarchal outlook. So the answer is option 1 and 4. Yes, her grandmother definitely showed authority where she used to make the decision, and also it shows patriarchal outlook of life, that women are only meant for childbearing and there is no use of education for girls. So it showed a patriarchal outlook. 33rd, which of the following statements is not true of Leonard Mead? A. He enjoyed walking the streets at night. B. He was married to a writer. C. He was arrested for being out of his home at night. D. He kept all the lights in his home turned on. So, which is not true? Yes, this is a very straightforward answer. He was definitely not married. So, option B is not true. 34th, select the option which shows the correct relationship between statement 1 and 2. Statement 1, Mead compares walking through the empty silent streets to walking through a graveyard. Statement 2, Mead compares the empty streets to the dry riverbeds of a windless desert. So A, statement 1 and 2 are both true. B, statement 1 and 2 are both false. C, statement 1 is true, statement 2 is false, statement 1 is false, or statement 2 is true. So yes, Mead definitely compares walking through the empty silent streets to walking through a graveyard. That is correct. And he compares the empty streets to the dry riverbeds of a windless desert. That is also correct. So statement 1 and 2 are both true. 35th. He, that is Leonard Mead, was within a block of his destination when the lone car turned a corner quietly quite suddenly. He, which is Leonard Mead, was within a block of his destination when the lone car turned a corner quite suddenly. Means that Mead was dash. A. Blocked by a single car when he suddenly turned the corner. B. Surprised to find a block preventing the single car from turning. C. Destined to be blocked suddenly by a car on a lonely street. Or D. Close to his home when the car appeared without warning. So the answer is he was close to his home when the car appeared without warning. 36. Which of the following words best describes the world in which Mead lived? A. Idyllic. B. Utopian. C. Dystopian. Or D. Cheerful. So I've mentioned this answer umpteen number of times while explaining the story. So Leonard Mead lived in a, yes, see, dystopian society. Next, which of the options contain the same literary device that appears in the following line? Besides, the whole school seems so strange and solemn. That is A. The boom of the fireworks scared the baby. B. The daffodils were tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. C. While I nodded, nearly napping. Or D. Her smile is a ray of sunshine. Okay, so first let's recognize which literary device is used in the sentence. Besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. So alliteration is used here. So where else is alliteration used in the options? While I nodded, nearly napping. So it is option C. So if you don't know the literary devices properly, I have uploaded a video where I have explained each literary device in detail. Please go and watch that video. Next, choose the option that lists the sequence of events in the correct order. First, every time the young boy looked up from writing during the last lesson, he found M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair. Second, he put on his fine Sunday clothes as he was delivering his last lesson. Third, M. Hamel had also brought new copies written in a beautiful round hand to the class that day. Fourth, the boy noticed that M. Hamel, their teacher, was wearing his beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap. I'll give you some time to choose your options. Okay, I hope you marked your answer. So, first is the boy noticed that M. Hamel, their teacher, was wearing his beautiful green coat. And what is this beautiful green coat? Something that he wears on the fine Sunday clothes. Then what did Amel also bring? He also brought new copies written in a beautiful round hand to the class that day. And afterwards in class, every time the young boy looked up from writing. So he has already given the book. So after that, he's writing. During the last lesson, he found sitting motionless in his chair. So it is option 4, 2, 3, and 1. 4, 2, 3, and 1, which is option A. 39. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statements 1 and 2. Statement 1. My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. Statement 2. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. So is it option A? Statement 1 is true, statement 2 is false. Or statement 2 is true, statement 1 is false. Statement 1 and 2 are independent, or statement 1 is a statement 2 is a cause for statement 1. So also is pretty apparent. So order has come, and because of that, it is his last lesson. So statement 2 is the cause for statement 1. Franz was quite dashed to his learning of French language. A. Serious, B. Attentive, C. Indifferent, or D. Focused. So was not during the last lesson. But how was Franz? He was quite indifferent to his learning of the French language, and that is why later he regretted for not paying attention. So we have completed 40 questions. Now we have completed prose as well, and now we are going to drama, which is Julius Caesar. 41. Mark Antony stirs the emotions of the crowd in his A. Farewell speech, B. Eulogy, C. Prologue, or D. Epilogue. So he does not give any farewell speech. What is eulogy? Eulogy is usually a speech or a piece of writing that praises someone or someone highly. Especially it's a tribute that is given to someone after they are dead. Prologue is uh, an introduction usually given before the story starts in a book. An epilogue is the one that is given after the story, that is towards the end of the book. So, after my explanation, it is pretty apparent. Mark Antony stirs the emotions of the crowd in his eulogy. Correct. Option B. 42. O world, thou were the forest to this heart, and this indeed, O world, the heart of thee. Which of the following uses the same literary device as given below? A. The bees buzzed around the flower-filled garden. B. Her eyes are buttons. C. She caught the scent of mothballs in the abandoned home. Or D. Broken pencils are pointless. Okay, so first let's see what the literary device in the question is. O world, thou were the forest to this heart, and this indeed, O world, the heart of thee. Okay, so here HART is the deer. Okay. So the literary device that is used here is pun. So what is pun? It is a literary device that involves a play on words to suggest multiple meanings. That is, it shows ambiguity that arises from words that sounds alike but have different meanings in them. And if you see here, the option that shows pun is option D. Broken pencils are pointless. So it uses the word pointless with a double meaning. Literally, a broken pencil lacks a sharp point, and figuratively, it is actually useless or without purpose, creating a humorous play on words. That is why both these are pun and it is the answer. 43rd. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statement 1 and 2. Statement 1, they will kiss dead Caesar's wounds with reverence. Statement 2, the people of Rome have just heard Antony read out Caesar's will to them. So statement 1 is true, statement 2 is false. Statement 2 is the cause of statement 1. Statement 1 and 2 are independent of each other, or statement 2 is true and statement 1 is false. So the people of Rome have just heard the will and they will kiss dead Caesar's wounds with reverence. So it is option B. Statement 2 is the cause of statement 1. 44th. What is the attitude of the mob in the scene? A. Clever, B. Intelligent, C. Sensitive, or D. Irrational? Definitely the mob is not clever or intelligent. They are irrational, they are fickle minded. At one point, they totally believed Brutus and they were supporting him. The very next moment, irrationally, they are supporting Antony and ready to kill all the other conspirators. 45th. Which of the following is not an example of irony? A. Cassius calls Caesar a god while describing how weak he was. B. Antony refers to Brutus as an honorable man while disapproving his claims. C. One of the plebeians suggested crowning Brutus king. D. Antony compares the conspirators' killing of Caesar to apes and hounds. So, what is irony? Exactly opposite situation of what is mentioned. So, Cassius calls Caesar a god while describing how weak it is. Definitely irony. Again, Antony's speech is ironical. One of the plebeians suggesting crowning Brutus king. That is again irony because later they want to kill him. So the option is option D. Now, Antony comparing the conspirators to apes and hounds, he literally means it. So there is no irony in that statement. 46th. Which of the following sentences does Mark Antony not use to describe Lepidus in Act 4, Scene 1? A. He needs to be taught and trained. B. High-spirited fellow with ideas of his own. C. He follows trends and fashion. D. He is a piece of property. So, which is not. So, he definitely doesn't say he's a high-spirited fellow with ideas of his own. What does Antony call him? He calls him a barren-spirited fellow, the one that feeds on abjects, odds, and imitations. So he's also talking him as a property, but he does not call him a high-spirited fellow, but a barren-spirited fellow who follows others' ideas. That is why option B is wrong. 47. What opinion does Octavius hold about Lepidus? A. He's industrious. B. He's responsible. C. He's a good statesman. Or D. He is a tried and valiant soldier. Yes, Octavius calls Lepidus a tried and valiant soldier. And that is when Antony says, so is my horse, Octavius. Okay, 48th. Brutus and Cassius did not argue in front of their men because A. They did not want an audience. B. They did not want to demoralize their troops. C. They wanted witness to collaborate in their discussion. They wanted to discuss in a calm environment. So they did not argue in front of their troops is because they did not want to demoralize their troops. 49. Brutus does not allow his pain and anguish to interrupt his professional life. This portrays that he practices A. Stoicism, B. Cynicism, C. Buddhism, or D. Epicureanism. So, one of the major points of Stoic philosophy is not allowing personal pain or anguish to interrupt the professional life. So, it is Stoicism. 50. O Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb. Which of the following uses the same literary device as given above? A. The man fought as bravely as a lion. B. His voice is velvet. C. The sky was dotted with fluffy white clouds. D. The juicy apple tasted sweet. So, O Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb. So, what is the figure of speech? It is metaphor, where Brutus directly calls Cassius a lamb, equating him to a meek animal, suggesting a lack of independent strength or dominance, especially compared to Caesar, who is called a wolf or a lion. So here, which one is the answer? Which is a metaphor? His voice is velvet. So again, metaphorically, the voice is compared to a velvet. Two different things. When compared to each other, it is called a metaphor. 51. What feeling does Cassius' word convey when he refers to Octavius as a peevish schoolboy and to Antony as a masker and a reveler? A. Fear. B. Disdain. C. Worry. D. Regret. So Cassius's words convey what when he calls Octavius and Antony? It is of disdain. There's definitely no fear, worry, or regret. It is clear disdain. 52nd. Which of the given options lists the sequence of events in the correct order? First, during the battle at Philippi, Brutus's army inflicts an early defeat on Octavius's troops. Second, seeing some troops in the distance, Cassius sends Titus on horseback to check if they are friends or foe. Third, meanwhile, in another part of the battleground, Cassius learns that his camp has been surrounded by Antony's soldiers and is being attacked. Fourth, Pindarus, seeing Titus surrounded by horsemen, assumes that he has fallen into enemy hands and reports to Cassius that he, which is Titus, has been taken captive. Fifth, next Cassius instructs his servant Pindarus to climb a hill nearby so that he can give him a detailed account of all that has happened to Titus. Now I'll give you some time to arrange the answers and find the correct sequence. If you haven't found the answer, you can pause the video, or else let's proceed. So the first one is, during the battle at Philippi, Brutus's army inflicts an early defeat on Octavius's troops. Then, meanwhile, what happens? In other part of the background, Cassius learns that his camp has been surrounded by Antony's soldiers. Then what happens? Seeing some troops in the distance, Cassius sends Titus. Then, Cassius instructs his servant Pindarus to give him a detailed description of what is happening. So this is also done, this is also done. So what is the last option? Pindarus, seeing that, he gives the information that Titus has been taken captive. So it is 1, 3, 2, 5 and 4. Option D. 53rd one. Cassius's reference to ravens, crows and kites taking the place of two mighty eagles that accomplished their armies from Sardis tells us that he is dash. A. Filled with superstitious dread. B. An expert bird watcher. C. Happier in the company of birds. Or D. Not a believer in superstition. So here the answer is now. He is filled with superstitious dread. Before he was not a believer, but after this situation took place, he was filled with superstitious dread. 54. In Act 5, Scene 4, Lucilius pretends to be Brutus and is taken captive. His actions reveals his A. Loyalty to Octavius, B. Desire to escape, C. Loyalty to Brutus, or D. Youthful folly. So when Lucilius pretends to be Brutus, it shows his loyalty to Brutus. 55. To whom does Brutus refer when he says, "Are yet two Romans living such as these? The last of all the Romans, fare thee well." A. Antony and Octavius, B. Cassius and Titus, C. Pindarus and Lucius, or D. Strato and Lucilius. So, Brutus, when he comes and sees that Cassius is dead and so is Titus, he mentions these lines. 56th one. Select the option that shows the correct relationship between statement 1 and 2. Statement 1. Brutus was a believer in the Stoic philosophy. Statement 2. Brutus chose to take his life rather than face the humiliation of being taken captive. A. Statement 2 illustrates Statement 1. Statement 2 contradicts Statement 1. Statement 1 is true and Statement 2 is false. Statement 1 is false and Statement 2 is true. So here the answer is option B. Statement 2 contradicts Statement 1 because according to Stoic philosophy, suicide is not considered appropriate. But here Brutus chose to take his life rather than face the humiliation of being taken captive. So definitely Brutus 1 is a believer of Stoic philosophy, but it is in stark contrast to what he did. So that is why Statement 2 contradicts Statement 1. The last question. Cassius and Brutus make up their minds to die rather than to be taken as prisoners. What trait of character is revealed in their behavior? A. Pride. B. Sadism. C. Resignation. Or D. Pessimism. So they don't want to be chained and taken on the streets of Rome. So it shows pride. I'll rather die than to be bound in chains. And yes, we have completed all the multiple choice questions. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please share it among your friends so that they can also revise the entire portion. If you haven't subscribed, please do that immediately. I'm praying for each one of you. God bless.